Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the FTX Crypto Cup in Miami. 8 players, all seated across from each other, playing live, but on computers. 5 rounds are completed out of 7. Today was round number 5. And today, Magnus Carlsen's chess crashed the internet of every participant. That's not an exaggeration. That's not clickbait. I mean, it might have just been the internet going out, but Magnus is so powerful that he took out all of the connection of everybody in the playing hall. And we are going to feature, obviously, his matchup. That one's going to be the last one because it was a crazy matchup against young Krzysztof Duda. Let me give you a brief summary of what happened in all the other matches. We have Anish Giri versus Giri Aronian. Obviously, exciting matchup. Two individuals who have probably played each other nothing short of hundreds of times. And it began, I think this is their second rapid game. Began with an Italian, castles, d6, and Levon plays something that you would expect a beginner to play, which is queen to f6. That's a really funny move because beginners don't, I mean, this is how beginners play, right? Like, they're hoping for scholar's mate stuff. But there is an idea. The idea is white obviously wants to play d4, and you obviously want to stop that, so you play queen f6. Very funny move. And then Levon makes sure his bishop doesn't get trapped, and then moves his knight to e7. Levon just has a queen on f6 and is just acting like this is normal. Obviously, from the opening, Anish gets an advantage because Levon put his queen on f6 and h6, but he's not a whole lot worse, and he plays king h8, and he's made it very clear he wants to play f5, g5, etc. A couple of moves later, he does, in fact, play the move f5, and this is just pandemonium. We have an explosion in the middle. We have an explosion on the king side. Queen side is about to open up. Very chaotic position. Anish is better, according to the engine, but is Anish going to play like the engine? He does. He trades a couple of pawns to remove the tension and goes to trade the bishop. He puts the bishop on e4. He wants to trade on his terms, right? Levon's still not stopping. Like, Levon is still attacking, and now all of a sudden we have a rook potentially rotating over as well. The engine still thinks white has a big advantage here, but that's because Stockfish doesn't really fall under human emotion. Like, Stockfish is not like, oh my god, I'm so scared. I'm getting mated, oh no. Stockfish is like, there's no mate here, bro. e4, all right? And then in the middle of the game, I'm just gonna go queen b5 and then take a pawn, okay? And then I'm gonna get out and act like nothing happened, and I'm just a pawn up. And that's exactly what Anish did. Anish is just a pawn up, gets his queen back to safety, dances around a little bit. Now black has to begin retreating, and Anish is just pushing his a-pawn. It's a completely winning position for Anish. He out-navigated Levon in this middle game, and he's just totally winning. Levon goes for a queen trade. Believe it or not, Anish should actually take this queen. Anish should trade the queens, put his knight on c5, win the endgame, backing that a-pawn. Instead of that, Anish is like, let's trade queens on my terms. But suddenly, Levon begins consolidating. Anish might no longer be better, okay? So Anish is trying his best, but he loses the a-pawn. He gets the e-pawn, but he loses the a-pawn. Takes, knight to g6, queen c5, rook a1, it's equal. Despite being up a pawn, suddenly black does not have the same problems, and white's advantage is now the e-pawn, but I don't know how that pawn's going to move forward, right? Black has all sorts of counterplay, so suddenly it's equal. Anish in dire straits out here, and actually after rook c2 might have even been at a slight disadvantage. Levon's trying to create counterplay. Look at this, folks. This is crazy. Levon's just, he's not even down a pawn anymore. He's better. Massive comeback here by Levon, who continues to bully Anish. Knight e5, nice move. All right, we have knight e5. He throws in a check. Wait, but why does he throw in a check? Why does he throw in a check? What does he do? He's trying to mate Anish and not take the knight back? What was wrong with taking the knight? I'll tell you what was wrong. Nothing. There was nothing wrong with taking the knight. Instead of that, Anish gives a check and plays queen f3. Look at this. Now there's no mate, and you can't take the knight because checkmate in 1. But there's queen b5 check. King g1. He just kept the knight. Levon made such a massive comeback and then went for a little tactical shot, but totally missed queen f3. And that's it. Once Anish consolidates, he's just up a full piece. There is absolutely nothing to do here. And Anish goes on very comfortably to trade the pieces down into a winning endgame. After king f6, there's just e7. It's crazy. Levon did so much work to get back into the game and ends up going down because of a small defensive oversight. Like, I mean, he could have just played queen takes knight. This is the whole reason he played knight e5. Knight e5, queen e5. It's just equal. But Levon goes for a bit more, and unfortunately, it comes back to bite. Anish won the next rapid game as well to take the mini match 2.5 to half, and he gets the 3 points and the 7,500 bucks. Not too shabby. Next matchup I have for you is Pragg Babu versus Liem. Liem has had a little bit of a rough event thus far, only winning one mini match. Pragg is perfect. He's 12 for 12. So Pragg begins with d4. We have a Vienna, d takes c4. This is the queen's pawn Vienna. There's also this Vienna with knight c3. This is also known as the Vienna variation. e4, this is a pawn sacrifice line. White sacrifices a pawn. Taking the second pawn is too dangerous. White will sacrifice in exchange, and black will not be able to castle, so we have this. And in this line, black grabs a pawn and holds on for dear life like you're on a roller coaster. Because white wants to play rook e1, knight e5, queen g4, bishop h6, rook e3, rook g3. Like, white has a lot more space and wants to deliver mate. You're going to see that in this game, all right? You're going to see there's a threat already created. Now the queen is going to e2 to go over here. Queen e4 threatens mate. Queen rotates over. Now you're looking for sacrifices. So, for example, you're looking for this maybe. And this is terrifying. I mean, as you can see from stock, this is already completely winning because white will go here and here, or even here and bishop h7. It's just a completely lost position. So Pragg looking for all these different sacrifices, right? Liem not letting him get those sacrifices. We have takes, takes, takes. Still, this position looks quite nice for Pragg, but well, this one Liem's going to try to defend. Bishop d2, rook e1. All of Pragg's 5 pieces, bishops, rooks, and queen, are all playing. But black has enough material here to defend himself. Pragg continues to make advancements into the position, and black continues defending. We have a queen trade, and the rook goes to e7. White has 2 ideas. Bulldoze the 7th rank, rook e3, rook g3. Liem's king goes out into witness protection on the h5 square. Look at this. I mean, this king just looks like it's dead. It's a goner. I mean, white's just going to play h3, g4, I don't know, bring this rook back, ladder mate in the middle of the game. And yet, black is better. How is that possible? One guy's king is literally standing on the edge of a cliff, hoping not to fall. The other guy's like borderline mating him. And also material is even. Actually, yes, material is even. So how's black better? Doesn't make any sense. Well, Liem plays rook back to d1, and then rook d3. So he defends against ladder mate by targeting the rook. The rook gets out of the way. Oh, no, let's trade. No, seriously, let's trade. Let's trade. I said let's trade. Pragg's like, yo, bro, be quiet. You can't talk in the playing hall. g4 check. Rook back to e3. Now there's no ladder mate, but there's bishop f6, which is just as bad. That's straight up mate in 1. Like, just so you know, bishop f6 is straight up checkmate. Like, black's king is in a terrifying situation, but pawn takes g4. Now if bishop f6 is played, I can go king h5. Right, like that's, when this pawn was here, the capture gives me back that square. He's safe, check. Suddenly Pragg is trying to get into an endgame, but Pragg's down 2 pawns. Pragg spent all this time trying to checkmate Liem's king, who was hiding out on the edge of the board. He failed, and he lost a couple of pawns in the process, and Liem's just winning. Liem's completely winning. Liem just gives a couple of checks, and now white's king is the one that's in danger. King to f4. Bishop defends everything. The next pawn falls. Pragg wins a pawn back, but look at this. Check. Bishop h3. Whose king was the weak one all along? Rook f1 is mate, and if you guarded g2, white resigns. Unbelievable. What a comeback that was. That was completely nuts. I mean, Liem was just supposed to lose. What? Like, again, the dude's king was hunted out of his castle. All the soldiers were removed of their responsibilities. The king had to fight for himself on the balcony out here, and survived. He just survived. He just stood there. He played one king move up, one king move back, did a little dance, and suddenly black won. And in the third rapid game, it was more of the same. Actually, Liem stops the streak of Pragg. So Pragg is 4-1 now. So he won the next rapid game as well. What a game this was. It was just an epic, epic game. I have one more matchup to show you. It's the matchup between Firouzja and Hans Niemann. This one began with a Berlin, and then bishop c6, dc, and this very peculiar line chosen by Hans with like queen d6, bishop e6. Firouzja plays king h1 to sidestep out of here and maybe look for f4 in the future. Oh my gosh, he knows again. b3, bishop b2, and as you see, Firouzja's just got a very stable structure. Like, everything in his position looks nice and cozy. At some point, he's going to need to try to advance somewhere in the position, though. Otherwise, black is just going to be completely okay. So there it is. All right, now we have knight to c4. Takes. All right, now look at this move, c5. Blocking this bishop out of the game. If black plays b5 here, this bishop is gone. It's never, ever getting back into the game. Did I mention that it's never getting back into the game? Yeah, it's never getting back into the game. Black has to play b6, which is why he plays it right now. Rook d1. While we're dealing with this over here, I'm going to go attack your knight. All right, you want to move your knight out of the way? Let's trade, but now you have weaknesses. And I still have a c-pawn, so I can play c4, c5 at any moment. But look at these light squares. Let me go get a little bit of light squares. c5, you want your bishop out? No, I'm going to close the door on your bishop. Knight f5. Now look at this. Bishop c1's a nice move. It's a very high-level move. Firouzja is so happy with his position, he just wants Hans to resign. So he's setting up the pieces for the next game. Bishop to c1. Should have went rook a1 first. In reality, the idea here is that you want to move the rook out of the way, and then there's various sacrifices on the h6 square. Or rook d3, rook h3. It's also a nice idea. And on top of that, you want to play c4. And completely block the bishop in for the rest of the game. Firouzja controls the only open file. He controls a lot of black's movement. And it's only a matter of time, right? There goes the rook. The knight does jump into h6, helped by this bishop over here. And now Firouzja, that's it. There it goes. g4, Wreck-It Ralph, rook g1 on the way. Takes with check. Rook d7 check. King goes to the back rank. And queen to e3. And Hans resigns because it's not much to be done. Rook g1 is coming. Queen h3 is on the way. Knight f7 check is on the way. And all of white's pieces got involved. Black's pieces were just kind of frozen, honestly. Just frozen, like, throughout the game. Just a very clean game by Firouzja. Very, very nice game. And the funny thing is, in their third rapid game, Hans was putting the pressure on for a long time, but ultimately made a blunder, which was kind of nuts. It was a blunder which, well, I'll tell you about it later. It actually has to do with Magnus crashing the internet. And so we move on to our final match of the day. Yeah, let's go through this. So it's Duda, Polish fighter, versus Magnus Carlsen, Norwegian goat, like greatest of all time, not like bah. Wait, is that the noise that a sheep makes? I'm a chess streamer, I'm not a zoologist. All right, knight f3, bishop b4 check. We have a Bogo Indian to start things off, bishop d2, and we have a Catalan style game by white. dc, a4, castles, and this pawn is going to be recaptured in a variety of ways. a5 is to prevent this, and also b5, right? It's to prevent b5, which is why Magnus plays it en passant, then this. Now, okay, a couple moves later, this pawn is going to be won on c4, and there it goes. And then Magnus wins the pawn on b2, and then that pawn on a7 is hanging, but before we take it, we need to defend this. So now white is going to win one of these two pawns. That's exactly what he does. Okay, terrific. So who's better here? White. You would actually more often than not see Magnus getting a position like this with white over somebody. He has the Catalan bishop. Black has a big weakness. Now, if black was able to trade this weakness off like this, black would just be equal because the pawn structure is completely symmetrical. Black no longer has a weakness. Black can also come back and trade rooks. White's not going to let that happen. He plays rook c1. Now, why does Magnus not rush with c5? Because it doesn't actually do anything. The pawn is pinned to the rook. So white can play like even g4 here, and if takes, there's this, and threatening g5. So Magnus instead plays h5, which prevents g4. Now we have e4. Knight can't take because the rook would take the knight. We have rook d8, sacrificing this pawn, but getting this one instead. And now here, Duda attacked a knight, right? Now, you don't have to move the knight if you danger level the knight. Now this knight is hanging. Duda plays knight g5. Okay? The idea of knight g5 is to deflect the knight from the defense of the rook. And he does exactly that. And now knight f6. So Magnus is down in exchange, but he has a really good structure, and this pawn is super weak. And if Magnus can successfully win the pawn on d4, he's just going to be totally fine. Which is why Duda plays the move king e2. Now if rook takes d4 happens, white has h4 ideas and wants to win the f7 pawn. That's all Duda's really got kind of remaining. He offers a rook trade, Magnus goes here, he attacks this, check, king to d3, and it's perpetual check. Just rook c3 check, king goes back, check. I mean, it's just perpetual, right? That's all you do. You got to go rook c2, rook c3. Instead of that, Magnus gives a check with the knight. This is no longer perpetual check. Well, how is it not perpetual check, Levy? I don't understand. Just knight d5. Yeah, he's gonna sack. This knight is hanging. Folks, you forgot. So did Magnus. He thought it was just perpetual, but the point is that you can't do this because you lose. So he had to give a check with the rook, and suddenly Magnus is losing. The king runs, and it's almost a mating net. There's almost mates here, but Duda defends everything, sacrifices his bishop, and wins the game by just coming back. The knight is trapped. It has to guard the rook. Duda wins. It was on the verge of a perpetual check, and just a moment of pure madness. Or pure Magnus. Ha! Next game. Wow, Duda has a 1-0 lead. All right, next game, Magnus begins with an anti-Berlin and plays a line that is super funny, right? So we have knight d2, knight d7, and here many lines have been played. This knight usually goes out here, white castles. Plays knight f1. Okay, knight f1's obvious. You want to play knight g3 and bishop e3, right? Okay, cool. Duda castles g... What? Bro, you... What? He... Huh? Yeah, apparently this is a real thing. And then like knight e3 and rook g1. So this has been played before. The move g4 was played once in the Dresden German Masters by Nisipianu with white and Bindrik, Falco Bindrik with black. And they drew that game. But this is a rapid game, and I don't think we're going to get a... Look at what Magnus is doing. This is... And by the way, this is all the best moves. I mean, this man has ideas for days. He's like an oasis of ideas. Knight f5. And Duda's like, well, I don't know what to do, right? When in doubt, just push all your pawns on one side of the board. So Duda's like, I'm just going to go a4, b5, and hope for the best. All of Duda's pieces are on the back rank. Bishop g5. Inducing this and coming back. Now Magnus is ready with the move g5. But the move g5 is not good right now. Which is why Magnus doesn't play it. Of course, Magnus should play h5. And then slowly prepare maybe h6. Maybe move the king off the center line, right? Maybe castle queenside. That's actually, to be honest with you, that's why Duda played a4 and b5. He was like, well, Magnus is not going to castle this way. He might go bishop d2, queen e2, which is sort of as you see here. He's like, maybe Magnus will go queen e2 and long castle, right? But then I'm ready. What are you're really going to walk into this, Magnus? You're really sure about that, right? So it's smart by Duda. It's a very smart idea. But Magnus plays g5. And Duda just takes the knight and blasts open the center of the board. I mean, the king's on the other side, right? When the king is on the other side, and he hasn't castled yet and can't castle for a while, you want to shred open the center. Because now, it's all Duda. GF, he takes f5. Now here, listen, it's Magnus. He's not just going to go away. Duda trades rooks. Then he gets his knight out. He's ready to bring his rook. So we have knight h2, 2 pawns up. Queen goes back. Sorry, bishop goes back. He gets this. The king is running. Check, check, check. Rook f8 defending against bishop takes f6. Black's just up 2 pawns. Not only is black up 2 pawns, even if white is able to bring the rook, check, you cannot run because you get mated. Literally, just checkmated in one move. So you got to go back this way. I give you a check. I give you another check. And you can defend me, but I'm going rook e8. And now I'm defending my rook. Magnus resigns after queen h1. 2-0 Duda. So, Levy, where's this internet crash, bro? Did you clickbait us, bro? Nope. Nope. Internet crash is on the way. Game number 3. Duda only needs a draw, and that's the end of the recap, and he beats Magnus. Duda plays d4. Magnus plays a King's Indian defense. When you play someone who needs to win, and all you need is a draw, you should trade the queens off the board on move 5. There's no way Duda can lose now, right? Perfect strategy by Duda. C5, bishop c4, trading everything, getting into f7, getting to d6. All right, g4, you know, look at this, some queenside battling here. If you take on c4, take c5, this knight is super powerful. Very nice position from Duda. And he continues to try to ask questions to Magnus's position. Position is equal, but white is much better. After 25 moves, white just has a very clean advantage. He has a pawn going to h7. It's going to be a square away from promotion. There it is. Okay, he doesn't have to rush with h7, but all right, I mean, that's it. I mean, Duda's just completely dominated Magnus today from start to finish. It was not Magnus's day. Today was the day that Poland stands up. What do the Polish say? Polska górom? Is that what they say? Rook c7 is on the way. Rook g1 is on the way, for example. Maybe trying to get down to g8. Duda plays rook g1. Check. What Magnus can do here is create counterplay with his rook and his knight, right? So first of all, king d2 was apparently slightly better because the best thing for white to do is to go to e3. This is what the engine wants. It wants the king more active. But okay, king d1, baiting this, but now you have this. There's no more checks. The knight goes back. Okay. You should probably prevent rook b2 and play knight a4. All right, so rook b4. Now rook takes a7, defends the knight, okay? But now there's this move. Oh, that's weird. So you sack the rook for this. I mean, remember, Magnus has to win. He can't draw. So he sacrifices an exchange with ideas of checking this king and, you know, creating some problems. But then king c3 and then you win this. So, okay, h5. Well, you know, if rook takes a2, king c3, I don't know. I mean, you can play rook back to a4. I'm going to play h6, right? So Duda's like, all right, h5. Magnus slides his king over. Duda's like, there's no threat there. Here's h6. Rook takes a2. Duda's like, king c3. Magnus plays king c5. The internet goes out. Magnus crashes the internet after king c5. Magnus is winning. The move king d6 was not a do-nothing move. The move king d6 was intending to weave what's called a mating net. White's king has no moves and cannot escape the multitude of threats. It's a very famous checkmate, rook, knight, and pawn. They work really well together like this when a rook cuts the king off from the back, from behind, because you can go mate with the knight. You can also mate with the rook, and you can't stop both. The knight is too tricky. And he crashes the internet for everybody. The one move out of 3 games where Magnus was better, it's iconic. He crashes the entire internet. Everything short circuits. You knew something was going to happen here. And the players sat there for like literally 10 minutes. They were like, I don't know what's going on. And the game went on for a little bit. Rook b7, when play finally resumed, and they did not have this chrome screen of death. Rook h2. So now you're getting the pawn, but what's funny is Magnus blunders immediately. What's funny is that knight f4 here is winning for black faster, but that's what happens when the players get so distracted. So when you threaten this and rook e1, now rook h2 apparently is better. The point is, if you start with the move rook h2, rook a1 saves the day. And the point is, there is no rook a2 anymore, and white is trying to kick the king out. So for example, there's rook a5, but again, that internet outage totally messed with the players. So h7, knight b4, and the idea is if rook b4, then you give a check, you win the rook, and this pawn is stopped, and suddenly Magnus is just up 2 pawns in an endgame. And he gets his king to d3, and that's it, Duda resigns. So the players had like 5 to 10 minutes to sit there and think about the position, and they still got it completely wrong, because the internet outage totally messed with everything. Okay, but it's 2-1. Which means that Duda will just obviously make a draw in the second rapid game. Well, the fourth rapid game. All right, Duda's black. All right. A3, dude. Oh my God. A3 on move 3. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me, Magnus? Oh my goodness. I love it. I love it. Nobody else plays like this. He has what they call world champion bonus. And I like how Duda's like, nope. We're not doing this. You're not going to embarrass me. It's like when you're playing a blitz game and your opponent goes here. Everybody knows you don't play normally. Because if you beat a bozo that started with h4, it's nothing to write home about. And if you lose to a bozo who played h4, oh my God, this is terrible. So you just got to play h5. All right? Rule of thumb, your opponents play stupid stuff like this in the opening. You got to do the same thing. Now, Duda plays a6 and continues to copy Magnus. Now we have like a Queen's Gambit declined-ish, little semi-Slav position, lot of pieces on the board. Finally, Duda jumps in with his knight. We have a trade. A couple moves later, we have another trade. And Magnus is going to play behind a space advantage, okay? He's going to play rook c1, a4, right? Duda attacks in the middle. Magnus trades the queens, trades the pawns, bishop e4, and we have this, right? This is the position. This is what we got to work with. Magnus has a little pawn blob. Going to try to advance with e4, rook c1, b5, etc. And Duda's going to try to defend and not lose, because if he loses, it's a blitz playoff. All right, here we go. Here's Duda. All right, Duda's defending. Magnus slowly making progress. Duda starts fighting back with f5. All right, doing a nice job. Trades. All right. Will Magnus do the impossible? Come back from 2-0 down. All right, looking for his chance. Still equal. Trying to make progress. Uh-oh. That knight's looking very annoying. G5, Duda going for counterplay. Magnus still coordinating his pieces beautifully. And where's the break? Oh, get the knight out of there. Knight c5. Stockfish still thinks it's equal, but from a practical standpoint, it's very annoying to deal with these problems, right? Because you're constantly defending. So knight b7 gets a pawn. Now I'm going to take your knight. And I think Duda, instead of bishop takes d5, had to take with a c-pawn. 56 moves, right? And then he had to play for d4. Because if knight c5 here looking for this, there's this, and then the bishop comes in to defend. That's what Duda had to find. But Magnus's pressure finally pays off. World champion bonus is in full effect. And he gets 2 pawns up, and he wins. And there's a doggy at the door. Benji's excited. He tries to come into the room. And Magnus just made a comeback from 2-0. It's 2-2. Yeah, you thought Magnus was going to get swept? No, not so fast. Now we have blitz games. Now the players split the prize fund. And also, on top of that, they only get 2 or 1 point if they win. So Duda doesn't get the 3 points if he wins. If Magnus doesn't get the 3 points if he wins, but he was never going to win, right? He was down 2-0. So not only did he crash the internet, he also made a comeback. Now it's time for blitz. Here we go. B3. Larson's opening, damages black structure, plays a double fianchetto, and Duda's like, you know what? I'm pissed about last game. Let's go. I'm going to attack you. King g7, knight f6, knight to the middle, bishop back to h7. And fighting back on the queen side. Here's rook h8, bishop g. Look at what Duda's doing. Rook h8, bishop g8. If y'all play like that, you make it to guess the elo. When Duda plays like that, he's attacking the world champion and trying to win thousands of dollars. g4 takes, rook h6. Very exotic game by Duda. I mean, very chaotic. Here, king h1's the best move to try to get rook g1 and counterattack. All right, f3. There it is. There's Magnus going for the counterattack. Whose king is going to die first? It's really the question. fe5, de5. Bishop takes e6. He's shredding open the defenses. King f8. Now it's completely winning for white after the move queen to g2. There's just absolutely no way to prevent this incoming attack. But Magnus plays bishop takes g8. And blunders rook takes rook. But it's not quite a blunder. I mean, I'm sure he thought about bishop takes d5. But just rook c8. And look at this. He was trying to sneak in with his queen somewhere. Not to h7. Actually, wait a minute. Oh my gosh. I was going to say not to h7. It's absolutely to h7 because this is mate. That's brutal. So queen b1, but Duda, you should have taken my rook. You should have taken my rook when you had a chance. Now you're blocked, and now Duda's completely winning. King e8, but not with king e8. But it's a blitz game. It's a blitz game, and things are going to happen. King e8 sidesteps a lot of checks. But here comes black's attack, rook c1, bishop g6, the king is safe, knight d5, we trade, and at the end of the day, the bishop falls. In this game, it was impossible to track what pieces were hanging. Like, it just, this position was completely nuts. Credit to Duda for just biting down on his mouthpiece, which he's not wearing because it's a chess match, and just walking through punches and punching back, which they're not doing because they're playing chess and they're chess players and they don't punch each other. But metaphorically speaking, this was insane. What a game. There were pieces hanging all over the place. And Duda holds his nerves better, defends the position, and wins the first blitz game versus Magnus. After losing the last 2 rapid games. I'm sure he was tilted, but he decided to just chill out and make a nice comeback. Queen g2 and Magnus resigns because mate is coming. Queen c2 and where's the mate? Queen c2 and queen. No, I was gonna say queen c3. Queen c2 is mate in like 4. Ah, rook d1, queen d2. Duh. International master struggles to find mate in 2. Pog. Last blitz game. Will Magnus win, and will we get an Armageddon? Will we get an Armageddon? Here we go. Trempowski by Duda. Knight f3, knight d2, solid center. Look at this beautiful center. Oh my. a4. Nope, doesn't let me play a5. Okay. Route my knight back to the middle. Big center for white. f4. Look at this. Is a beautiful position by white. Absolutely every piece participating. Duda once again making it weird with his random pawn advancements. Knight f3. The thing is, Magnus has to do something here, right? It's on Magnus at the end of the day. All right, we have a trade. e5. Knight back to d2. Okay. b4. Kicks the knight out. Knight e4. Oh. You can't take because of this, and this is on the way. Now you can protect, but knight eg5. And white is threatening e6. But there's knight takes b4. Not so fast. e6. Queen is hanging here too. So I would go here and then take your queen. So queen b2. Magnus is creating counterplay. Queen f5 back. Suddenly black is better. Black is completely winning. All right. Magnus, win the game. Let's go to an Armageddon. King g7. Nice defense. Queen d2. Black plays d3. It is -6. Here we go. c4. Knight d4. Queen d5. f5. Wait. It was -6. What happened? What happened is he allowed knight d4. He allowed knight d4 kicking the queen out, and after f5, queen h6 is mate for white. What? Magnus played a very natural move, but he had to play something else. He had to play knight c2, he had to play rook a8. He was -6, and he led Duda back into the game, and suddenly, Duda's winning again. How is this happening? Well, he's not losing. Let's put it this way. Knight h8, rook f5. Black has these 2 passed pawns. Now Magnus is winning again. Rook b1, king g6 attacks the rook moves, knight e5. This is, I mean, look at this. This has to be winning for white, right? For black, right? The 2 passed pawns, d2. But now rook takes b7. Now white is maybe better again. Now white is maybe, what is going on? c3, rook c7, the pawns have been stopped. He stopped the pawns. Bishop b4, hangs the bishop. Knight f3, what? Magnus resigns. What did we just witness? I felt like Magnus was in control for so much of the last 4 games, and he just, I mean, credit to Duda, my God. What a fighter. What a match. My man crashed the internet with his chess, and after 5 rounds, Magnus is still in first, because he gets 1 point for losing in the blitz. Pragg got 0 points because he lost in the rapid, so it's Magnus 13, Pragg 12, Firouzja 11. Tomorrow, aka in about 4 hours, because I'm recording this the day after, it's Firouzja versus Magnus. I'll see you after that recap. I'll see you for that recap. Get out of here.